Thank you, Matt, and thank you, panelists. It looks like we're up next. My name is Jenny Nilsson, and I am a member of the WIL Canada team as the Associate Regional Director for the Western Region, which includes BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, and I'm joining you today from beautiful British Columbia. This next session is all about provincial funding for work-integrated learning. Our first guest is Rachel Brown from the Government of New Brunswick in the Department of Post-Secondary Education, Training, and Labour. Brian Train with the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Training in British Columbia was unfortunately unable to join us, so I will be pulling double duty today, filling in for Brian to answer questions about BC's work-integrated learning funding, as well as moderating today's session. Rachel, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with work-integrated learning?
So much, Jenny. Bonjour tout le monde. Really happy to be here among all of you today, and a big shout out to any of my partners or colleagues who are on the line again with us here. I'm Rachel Brown, as you've mentioned, working for the Government of New Brunswick with the Department of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labour, and I have the privilege of being a part of the Future MB movement here in our province, which is about embedding and infusing experiential education into our education system, from early childhood to the end of post-secondary, which would include work-integrated learning. So happy to be here.
Great, thank you so much. For myself, I know that I seem an unlikely stand-in for Brian Train. Prior to joining WIL, I was a co-op coordinator at the University of Victoria, but also the president of our Association for Co-op and Work-Integrated Learning in BC, also called ACE-WIL BC. So I have some knowledge of our BC's various WIL funding initiatives from that perspective. I'm going to ask you again, Rachel, to tell us a bit more about the funding that you've been involved in. So there's been significant funding investment in WIL in the province of New Brunswick. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that funding looks like and what it does?
Sure. So I would like to just thank the previous panelists. The sense of inspiration and engagement and passion has been reignited today with their conversation. And I would just like to say, would love to ask all of you to move to New Brunswick, because the mention of investing on all levels is currently happening with Future MB, Future Wabanagi, Avenir New Brunswick in our province. The mention of age, we don't have an age limit. So we actually want to embed experiential education from early childhood to the end of post-secondary. The way in which this is invested is not just government owned. So I think I heard a lot in terms of who is responsible for investing and positioning WIL as important in our province. That belongs to all of us. And for us in New Brunswick, we actually embedded that into our logo. It's an arrow moving forward to create a brighter future. And we absolutely believe that experiential education is one of those key factors to making a brighter future. And so it is a shared mandate. So I am only one of many. We have our amazing leaders and champions in our post-secondary sector from universities and colleges. We also have our leaders in the K-12 early childhood sector. We also have our leaders as it relates to industry, employers, small, medium, self-employed industry leaders. And we have our amazing students. And all of us from government, either provincial or federal, are all at the same table. So I think I heard in the previous conversation, you know, we have to open doors. You have to be willing to work together. And in New Brunswick, we are small enough that we know we can work together. So it wasn't a choice, really. So we have all created this brand, and certainly will recognize that our leaders in the education system, whether it's post-secondary or the public school system, have been doing experiential learning, work-integrated learning for years. We just wanted to give it a brand as part of our movement to enhance it and to increase opportunities so that all students of any age have access, because we do feel it is the key to creating a brighter future for our future leaders.
That's amazing. Thank you, Rachel. And how long has Future NB been in process? Like, when did it start, and does it have an end date? Or
yeah, so there's no way, no, absolutely not. It's going to be here forever and a day. And it was really formalized with the partnership of our 4 universities. So in New Brunswick, we have 4 publicly funded universities who came together and really positioned this as saying we need to do better and align with our labor market demands. And we certainly agreed to be a partner in that. Alongside of that was our employer champions. And then we've certainly recognized and brought with us as well as leaders, our colleges, because they've been doing this. This is their core mandate. They excel in this area, and as well as our education system. So the funding is a shared model. So when we talk about investment, and I think it was one of the previous speakers there mentioned about investment, it has to be investment from all levels. So employers have to invest in this. I think it was mentioned, if they don't invest in this now, they're not going to survive. If you do not see value in investing and being good mentors and offering valuable opportunities to youth now, your business is not going to be operational 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. So you need to see that youth have talent today, and don't wait until they graduate. You're going to wait way too long. You need to start seeing their innovative thinking. You need to engage with them. You need to be a powerful mentor for them so that they know that they can do amazing things in their lives. So investment can be money, but investment is also about, I think, obviously the quality of the placement, the quality of the mentorship, the quality of the skill development opportunities, and of the experiences. So we ask all of our partners, what is your investment? So yes, from a provincial government perspective, we are investing, but we also have our partners with the federal government. SWIP, happy to hear some of the leaders here in that SWIP program, amazing opportunities there. But we also have our institutions, we have our schools, we have our communities, and we have our students who are investing. So for us, it began more of a formalized type of way to brand our movement. So it's going to be longstanding, and I will say that it was very important for us to ensure equal access. So we certainly have Future Wabanagi, which is aligned with our Indigenous communities and ensuring Indigenous students have amazing and equal opportunities to experiential learning. We have Avenir New Brunswick, which ensures equal opportunities for our Francophone communities. But we also want to make sure that students with disabilities, newcomers, we also have Future MB International. I think somebody mentioned about the discrepancies or the inequalities for international students. New Brunswick says, nope, we are going to invest in our international students in the same way that we would invest in our domestic or Canadian students. So we actually have been doing some really great things here in New Brunswick, even among a worldwide pandemic.
Amazing. Thank you, Rachel, so much for sharing. I have a question that's come in through the chat. Rachel, are you using Future NB to purposely target immigration and reduce outmigration?
Yes. So I would say there's three folds to that. So for us, we want to make sure that our current students, our youth who are here in New Brunswick, we diminish that stigma that there's nothing here in New Brunswick. There's amazing opportunities here in New Brunswick. Students don't know what they don't know. Employers don't know what they don't know. And educators, faculties, including myself, we don't know what we don't know, but we're only going to know from each other if we get to work with each other. So we are utilizing this so that our youth see actual real purpose to finishing grade 12, to them making connections to our post-secondary institutions so that they see value in investing in their post-secondary education, and then pursuing a post-secondary education, but also bringing back students for internships that are studying maybe across Canada. Sorry if those are some of your students, but we're coming to get them. And we're also using it certainly too, because international students, as you know, they want a connection to community. They need good mentorship. They need to feel like they belong to somewhere other than in residence or from within their apartments. So our institutions have been doing an amazing job at making sure that they see value in connecting with New Brunswick employers. So it's been a huge win all the way around, to be honest.
Great, thank you so much. I'll speak a little bit about the funding from the BC perspective. So BC has also made some significant investments in co-op and now also work integrated learning over the last several years. So in 2016 and 2017, the government provided $75,000 to each co-op program in BC, as well as an additional $100,000 to ACEVille to further co-op in our province. In 2019, they announced another $9 million over 2 years to support co-op and work integrated learning now through the Co-op and Work Integrated Learning Grant Initiative. This funding was dispersed through a competitive proposal-based process. We awarded 72 projects funding, and 28 of those projects were led by colleges and polytechnics in the province for a total of $4,051,990 in funding. So they got a big chunk of the funding. Last year, there was an additional $5.5 million invested, and 45 projects were funded. 21 of those projects came from colleges and polytechnics for another $2,670,000 and $421 in funding. So colleges and polytechnics in BC have gotten quite a bit of traction through the funding that the government in BC has provided, which has been fantastic. Rachel, I know that you mentioned it was the original partnership was with the 4 universities in the area, and I'm an alumna of the Mount Allison University, so fantastic. Yeah, so it's just great that there's so much investment in work integrated learning in the province. So I know that the university has really prospered. Are there any colleges now that are kind of part of that partnership, or that also are able to access funding? Can you tell us a little bit about
Absolutely.
that?
Yes, absolutely,
Mhm.
Jenny. And as I mentioned before, long before we named this movement, Future MB, Future Wabanagi, Avenue New Brunswick, this work was being done, and many, many, many successful opportunities were happening. So within New Brunswick, we have 4 publicly funded community colleges: MBCC, CCMB, MBCCD, and the Maritime College of Forest and Technology. So they are all part of this movement, as they should be. They're leaders in their field. We have our 4 universities, and then we have our public school system. And in New Brunswick, we have a Francophone and Anglophone school system. And so they are all partners, as well as our student council. So I am noting that today there's not a student voice necessarily presenting, but that has been the heart of our work. We are doing this primarily for our students, but also for our employers, and that's why they are equally at the table in a variety of working groups. And we have a provincial structure in place that ensures that employers, industry, not-for-profit, institutions and schools, as well as government on both levels, federal and provincial, are communicating, sharing, learning from each other, and developing Future MB, Future Wabanaki together.
Great, thank you so much. We have just a couple minutes left of our panel. Do you have any like a success story or an example of something that's been funded that you'd like to share?
I guess, well, for us, maybe one of the ones that I could think about is the partnership that we have with our Chamber of Commerce. They have named it Future Link, which is basically utilizing youth knowledge and talent as like free agents. And so they are connecting those students to a variety of Chamber of Commerce members, not only one-on-one. So we are really looking at different types of opportunities. So it's not always just one student with one employer, but perhaps a team, a class, a whole semester, a week, an hour, whatever. And they actually helped some of these members actually keep their head above water during the pandemic. So if you check out Future Links, and I can share that link in the chat later, I can also share the link if it hasn't been done already for the website for Future MB. That would be one of our successes. It's really hard because we have a lot of successes with our Future MB International. We have a lot of successes with some of the new initiatives with our K-12 system. Our colleges just have so many, but most recently, RBC being one of our founding partners, celebrated quite a few successes, I guess, on the first RBC Future MB Week. And I will share that link as well, which kind of highlights success stories from across the education system with a variety of employers and a variety of students.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rachel. I
Yeah.
know with so many amazing projects happening and things that are happening in incredible ways that the funding's being utilized, it's hard to kind of put a spotlight on just a few. We had a symposium last year in BC, 2 symposia actually, that showcased some of the outcomes of the first round of funding. So some of the projects that come to mind in case anybody thinks that they might like to build on some of these projects in your own region or your own institution. Okanagan College did an Indigenous Student Initiative, which was a project to increase participation of Indigenous students in co-op programs specifically by conducting environmental scans of current initiatives, interviewing Indigenous co-op students to better understand barriers and to raise awareness of co-op programs among Indigenous students through various activities. So that was a really very impactful project that happened at Okanagan College. Camosun College also developed an industry partner engagement toolkit, which is an open educational resource. So if you go to their website, you can find the open source toolkit, which is fantastic. It includes a wealth of information on creating sustainable and engaging partnerships with employers and community partners. So much great information there for those that work with employer or community partners. And there is also then a few partnerships, quite a few partnership projects that were delivered. One was North Island College, who partnered with Vancouver Island University to launch WIL, Vancouver Island Work Integrated Learning, which was a regional hub to boost employer engagement and enhance work integrated learning in the Central Island region. And it was a specialized strategy that really focused on how to engage employers in rural and remote areas, which I know a lot of us are really interested in. So you can find out more about WIL on their website as well. So it looks like we've run out of time. So thank you so much. I don't see that there were any questions, but there's lots of links in the chat to check things out. Rachel, thank you so much again for joining us. And from there, we are going to go on into our break. So we've got 15 minutes and we will rejoin at 2:45 Eastern Time, 11:45 here in BC, for the rest of this fantastic symposium. So thank you so much for joining us so far. And thank you again, Rachel, for sharing about your work integrated learning funding in New Brunswick.